Hello everyone, I hope you all are enjoying this cold but very sunny Tuesday morning. I'm super excited to be with all of you again today to talk about another principle of Catholic social teaching. So far in my videos on Catholic social teaching or CST, we've talked about the foundational principle of the life and dignity of the human person. And we've also talked about the call to family, community, and participation. Today, we're going to talk about the third principle, which is rights and responsibilities. So I'll give a little introduction to what the principle of rights and responsibilities is by first reading what the USCCB and Catholic Relief Services has to say about the principle. So they say, the Catholic tradition teaches that human dignity can be protected and a healthy community can be achieved only if human rights are protected and responsibilities are met. Therefore, every person has a fundamental right to life and a right to those things required for human decency. Corresponding to these rights are duties and responsibilities to one another, to our families, and to the larger society. So this principle of rights and responsibilities really flows out of the foundational principle of the human dignity of every individual. The compendium, or kind of the collection of social teaching of the Church, notes that these human rights are not rooted in the will of humanity as a whole or up to the particular state or form of government at a particular time, but rather, and I'll quote here, but in man himself and in God, his creator. So these human rights are rooted in our identity as creatures created by God and in relationship with Him. The rights of human beings then are not dependent upon public powers and what they say about the human person, and instead are, as described by Pope John the 23rd in Pacem in Terris, three words that describe these rights are universal, inviolable, and inalienable. These three descriptors declare the reality that as universal, though these rights are present in all human beings, regardless of circumstance. And as inviolable, they are inherent to every human person, and inalienable because they cannot be taken away or deprived by another person. Many of these rights were specifically articulated during the Second Vatican Council by both Pope John the 23rd and Pope Pius VI. And Pope John Paul II goes on to kind of list them as a whole. So I'll read an excerpt of that list. Quote, the right to life, an integral part of which is the right of the child to develop in the mother's womb from the moment of conception, the right to live in a united family and in a moral environment conducive to the growth of the child's personality, the right to develop one's intelligence and freedom in seeking and knowing the truth, the right to share in the work which makes wise use of the earth's material resources and to derive from that work the means to support oneself and one's dependents, and the right freely to establish a family, to have and to rear children through the responsible exercise of one's sexuality. In a certain sense, the source and synthesis of these rights is religious freedom, understood as the right to live in the truth of one's faith and in conformity with one's transcendent dignity as a person. So if we look at this list of rights, we can probably see ways in society that various rights are being threatened. We're called to do the important work of upholding these rights, and an important note too is made from the compendium about the importance of upholding the wholeness of all of these rights. For the compendium says that protecting them only partially would imply a kind of failure to recognize them. So the second part of this principle is responsibilities. We have rights and responsibilities, or duties as another way of thinking about these responsibilities. Rights and responsibilities are so closely connected. Because each one of us has the gift of inherent rights, we are then called and we have the duty to protect and uphold the rights of those around us. The compendium says, quote, the magisterium underlines the contradiction inherent in affirming rights without acknowledging corresponding responsibilities. Those, therefore, who claim their own rights yet altogether forget or neglect to carry out their respective duties are people who build with one hand and destroy with the other. So this beautiful principle of complementary rights and responsibilities rest in the foundation of our human dignity. It affirms our human rights that are essential to who we are and who we were created to be. And it also calls us outside of ourselves with the duty to protect and uphold the rights of all people. I hope this was a good introduction for all of you to the principle of rights and responsibilities. An opportunity for reflection this week might be to look at scripture and see what Jesus tells us about these principles in his own teaching. One particular opportunity to see this is in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. It's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verses 19 to 31. And maybe as you're reading and reflecting, to think about the questions, what is Jesus telling us about our rights in this parable? And similarly, what is he telling us about the responsibilities or duties that stem from these rights? So thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll look forward to exploring another principle of CST with all of you next week.